Hi there, it's a little afternoon, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Carol Moody, and I am a Senior Solutions Consultant with Smarter Services. Just a little bit about me. I've been working with educators in K-12 and higher ed in sales support and training roles for over 25 years, I think. Just really happy to be coming to you from Alabama, the state with the most HBCUs in the country. I believe we're either at 15 or 14 different HBCUs in our state. And I want to let my colleague, Julie Myers, introduce herself.
Hello, thanks, Carol. I'm Julie Myers, also a Senior Solutions Consultant. I've also been in higher ed for about 25 years. So Carol and I have similar journeys. I'm super excited to share with you more information about how we are helping HBCUs improve the student experience. So thanks for joining, and we'll get started.
So we're going to be sharing the recording after the session. Anytime you have a question, it would be really helpful if you can type it in the Q&A box and we can address those either as we go or at the end of the presentation, whatever works out better with the flow of the webinar. We've also got some special offers that we're going to share at the end of the recording, specifically for HBCUs in these next few months, ways to engage with us and our content. And the agenda today is really simple. We're going to talk about our tools for supporting the student experience, that being SmarterMeasure and SmarterProctoring. We're also going to, as we advertise this webinar, we mentioned some topics that your school may be trying to improve over the next few months. So we're going to try to connect to those topics and show you how our tools can help with those solutions and initiatives you may be having. We've got a lot to share about how other HBCU partner schools use our solutions to help improve the student experience. Have some beautiful resources to share with you to help support your students. And then we'll talk about those offers for HBCUs at the end. Also, one of the important things we wanted to do on the call is connect you with some very talented leaders in the HBCU digital learning space. Wanted to extend this invite for you to join the HBCU Digital Leadership Network. Again, this is driven by peers in your space, in the HBCU space, and there's a LinkedIn community that you can join. And also wanted to promote a webinar that they have coming up. Again, this is strictly an HBCU Leadership Network opportunity about reframing equity challenges and preparing students for success in both graduate school and the workplace. And then you'll see the dates and times there. And we'll make sure that both of these links are included in our follow-up webinar, but definitely wanted to share a chance for you to network with your colleagues. So as we talk about challenges for HBCU students, again, we're doing this presentation today to really talk about the student experience. And I wanted to share some data from the Annie Casey Foundation. We all know that the pandemic affected our lives tremendously, and in many ways, we're still trying to pivot into a post-pandemic world. But just to show how heavily impacted HBCU students were, the Casey Foundation surveyed 5,000 students from 14 public and private HBCUs, as you can see here, and look at these statistics of the number of students that struggled with just basic needs, with food and with housing, and the number of students here that we show that lost both either a full-time or a part-time job that had to be replaced either during the pandemic or closely after the pandemic. When you add to those statistics, I think right now inflation is sitting at 5%. Imagine the challenges that your students are facing as they look to build their careers and can finish their education. Economic pressures, I don't think there's any way we can overstate what the economic pressures are on really all of us with this spiraling inflation. So really think about how that impacts your students. And also too, we see that HBCUs, and I'm sure this is information you all are aware of, but HBCU students have a higher percentage of full-time, first-time undergrads than traditional when you summarize all higher education students at 33%. Being a first gen myself, I just kind of remember that when I got to college, it was like, okay, I was dropped off, figure it out. And I know a lot of people had more support if they were not a first gen student. Luckily, I had some siblings to help guide the way a little bit, but first gens really need support. They need direction. They need extra help in advising. They need extra help finding housing. And again, that's just more services that can be, something that the HBCU needs to provide to help make those students successful. So how can we support students? When we're looking at trying to improve student experience, one of these bullets mentions the word wraparound, right? So providing services to really help students address the need of the whole student. As I mentioned, a first gen may need help with housing, a gen may need help with mental health, a first gen may need help with finances or with advising. Also making advising more personal and building that relationship is a way that we can really improve that advising experience. And wouldn't it be great to know that students are struggling before they fail a semester? Wouldn't it be great to know if a student is struggling very soon after they enter your institution or even before they enroll in their first segment of classes? If we can get to know those students earlier in the life cycle and push out those supports can help us encourage success and completion. And also too, we want to make sure that we're when it makes sense to make a choice at the administration level that can help the student. We're going to talk a little bit later about how even offering different class types and testing options can be a way to help support the student.
So thanks, Carol. I appreciate that information. And again, like she said, a lot of that you already know, but we wanted to set the stage because we recognize that HBCUs, like all demographics and all different types of schools, have different unique challenges and opportunities, right? So a little bit about us. We are Smarter Services, established in 2002. So we just recently hit our 20-year anniversary, which is super exciting. We have served over 1,000. We probably even need to put that number up higher, but different types of client institutions across the country, many of those being HBCUs, but also everything from nonprofit, for-profit, large, small community colleges, technical colleges, and some K-12 as well. We've proctored over 3 million exams. The number climbs every day. And also we have serviced, I think it's up to 6.6 some odd million students that have been assessed for readiness with SmarterMeasure, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. So what is SmarterMeasure? So as Carol indicated, we are going to be talking about ways that you can support HBCU students and with 2 individual products. My goal is to give you a very basic understanding of these services. And so then you can maybe, those align with our initiatives, and then we can get on the phone with you independently to learn a little bit more exactly about what those needs are and how we can support you. So what is SmarterMeasure? It is the leading student readiness assessment that is based on non-cognitive factors or indicators of success. It is validated assessment, nationally normed, and it's highly configurable, which just means there's lots of customizations that you can do that really meet the needs of your students in your implementation. We do provide immediate feedback to students. So when students take the assessment, usually in an orientation course, sometimes in the admissions process, they're going to get immediate feedback about their strengths and some of their challenges, some of their opportunities for improvement. But we're also going to give them some resources for support. So it's not just to pass or fail. That's not at all. It's really just help you. Give us some insight to some of those things that you struggle with or may have challenges that were not reflected on the information you've already had to provide for us. We're going to take a quick peek at a student report just because I want you to get a glimpse of that. However, at the end, I'm going to provide trial logins so that all of you can take the assessment yourself as a student or in the student's shoes and view the report. So you get an idea of exactly what it is that we're giving that feedback to students. So administrators can also access this data, which is very helpful because that's going to give them, whether it be success coaches, advisors, admissions counselors, TRIO directors, those individuals insight about the students' non-cognitive attributes that, again, are not indicated in their transcripts and their SAT or ACT scores or even in the recommendation letters. That's really going to be critical because that allows you to make the appropriate early interventions, helping you proactively support your students. Ultimately, we love it when schools use that data to export over time, maybe it be at the end of semester every year. Then they are able to do research studies to help that data really educate them on maybe some of the missing resources that they need for their students, maybe trends in the scoring, and also how that can then better help them serve the students, connecting them to the resources that are most applicable to the students' challenges. Again, I mentioned it's been taken over 6.6 million students. And while some schools do use SmarterMeasure as a requirement in the admissions process, I don't want you to think of it as an exam or a placement test. It's not a pass or fail. It's not designed as a gatekeeper or a barrier to enrollment. This is simply providing additional information for you about the student that otherwise would not be uncovered. That's going to help you better and more proactively support them. So again, when you take the SmarterMeasure assessment yourself, you're going to see all these areas that we include. I'm going to skim through those, but I did want to pull from, I don't think I have it up. I do want to provide for you a glimpse of the SmarterMeasure report that the student experiences. And the reason this is so important is, again, this student is going to get immediate feedback, and that's going to give them the opportunity to understand what their challenges are and also have an honest conversation with you, right? How can they help? So let me get to this. I'm sorry, I had the assessment up, and now I don't, the report. Let me find it. Let's see. So I'll come back to that in just a moment. The scales and subscales, this is what's going to be included. And again, you can pick and choose sections, but this is where those non-cognitive attributes coming in. Individual attributes, things like time management, procrastination, motivation. Those are things that simply will not be uncovered in an admissions application or their transcripts, right? Or their GPA. Things like learning preferences. How do they prefer to learn? What's the best use of their study time? They're a solitary learner, probably best if they don't get in a study group, right? Could be very frustrating. So these are things that you would not know other than using SmarterMeasure assessment. It's going to give you deeper insight. The external factors, what is in that learner's environment that could impact their success? Are they working full-time? Are they supporting family members? Do they have support from family members? Do they have support from employers? Do they have a designated time and place to study, or are they just going to wing it, right? Do they understand the commitment? And again, this is not meant to discourage them, rather pinpoint things that they may have not thought through. So we want to bring it to the surface and communicate with the student about it and empower them, give them some suggestions and how to overcome these challenges. And then we go into other sections like the on-screen reading rate and recall. We know there's a difference research indicates from reading in print, like a textbook, and reading on screen. So we need to pinpoint that, let students understand that, since much will be required of them to reviewing on screen. Technical skills. How do you know the technical skills of a student? And listen, all of them have smartphones. We all do. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to work well in a learning environment with different resources on a computer or a laptop and do well in a class that requires technology. So we don't want to assume just because they're younger and they're a traditional student that they are going to be good with technology. On the flip side, what about those non-traditional students? Those individuals maybe have been in blue collar jobs. They don't have a smartphone in their face all day, right? And so they don't rely heavily on technology. Maybe they're stepping back into school to get a new skill. And so it could be challenging for them to learn in a technology rich environment. So we want to have a point of reference on that so we can be sure and be proactive with the students. LMS competency is a really big thing. Some people have never been exposed to LMS and they simply don't know how to navigate it. So we want to get an idea of where they're going to be so we can, again, proactively support them. And as Carol said, we don't want to know after they've dropped out, right? We want to be proactive on the front end. That we do have a cognitive section with math and writing readiness as well. So I'm going to pause a minute. Carol, I want you to go ahead and jump into SmarterProctoring, and I'm going to see if I can't find that student report because I do want to give you guys a glimpse of that.
Sure. We're going to talk about SmarterProctoring, and during the pandemic, a lot of institutions, a lot of companies decided to jump into the proctoring space, and just want to give you a little bit of advice here that you really want to work with somebody for proctoring that's been around for a long time. We've been providing proctoring services for about 10 years, and our solution has always been student focused and really focused on improving the proctoring process at your institution. So you'll see that we offer many options for proctoring so we can help you meet the needs of the student. On the next slide, Julie's going to show really all the options that we offer in SmarterProctoring. You won't find a mix of modalities or options like this from any other provider. We can help students find face-to-face places to test. One thing we found out during the pandemic is that students who were forced into remote proctoring, many of them did not like it. They had additional anxiety because they weren't prepared to be online learners, and many of them were forced into online classes and online proctoring. And one of my own sons, who's a student, had tremendous anxiety with his first few remote proctored exams. And Julie's daughter and her education was in the same place. Our face-to-face kids got forced into online proctoring, and they had some nerves, didn't they, Julie? Most definitely. So if a student wants to face-to-face test and you don't have a testing center on campus, we have networks that we can help connect them to, and we can help them easily find places to take an exam face-to-face, either at a testing center or with a proctoring professional at a college. We even have networks of face-to-face proctors. And you as an instructor, say if you're a hybrid instructor, you could offer students the chance to test in your class or offer them the chance to test remotely. An instructor's proctor lets you advertise when you'll test face-to-face. For remote proctoring, we offer all the most popular services. Automated proctoring, which is just going to be AI helping you proctor the student with all the sessions recorded and the incidents flagged. We have record and review, which is a big time saver for your faculty. And with record and review, and any false flag that AI may have indicated, my favorite example is a 5-year-old may come in and ask their mom for a snack. If the mom's a working parent and she's taking a course, right? And so as the mom says, go away, I'm taking an exam, you don't need a snack right now, our proctors would watch that flag that the session would indicate because of speech and throw it away. So when your instructor's getting ready to review incidents, they're not looking at anything that's harmless, right? Our proctors are going to clear that out. Live virtual proctoring is 24/7 with highly trained proctors who do a great job providing a good student experience. And also what we'll allow you to use in the middle is our hybrid solution. The same high-powered software that our internal proctors use to deliver our live virtual proctoring, will allow you to use that same software if proctors from your institution, if your testing center proctors did remote proctoring during the pandemic and they want to continue it with a tool optimized for proctoring. So basically you pick your options and we help you deliver them to the student.
Yeah, I love, Carol, I wanted to mention, yes, this is just another list of exactly what Carol designated. So I wanted to include this so it gives you a different visual. But when I jump over to the next slide, Carol, that, everything that you just described, hey, we'll provide this modality and this modality, and you get a modality and you get a modality and you get a modality. And that can be very overwhelming, right? The schools are like, wait a minute, that sounds confusing. Well, now Carol's going to share with you why that's not confusing and how we can bring that in for sure on this.
Yeah. So what happens is all those choices, the institution sits down and says, you know what, we think for our faculty, for our students, we want to allow them to test in the testing center. And we want them to be our instructors to have the benefit of record and review proctoring, because we don't want them to have to sit through looking at exam flags that aren't totally necessary. So if your institution only wants those two options, we set up Smarter Proctoring so that your students only see those two options. And those two options are presented clearly inside the learning management system. Our test center scheduling can integrate with a powerful test center tool called Register Blast that helps students schedule appointments. So we take all those complicated options and make it easy. We're also a real tool for academic continuity, because if we have another variant that comes around or something else unexpected where we have to lock down again, schools that use Smarter Proctoring during the pandemic were really able to go in and just with the click of the mouse, close the testing center option and move everybody over to automated or record and review or live proctoring. So we're not just we're a workflow tool. We're a way to make proctoring options easy for the student to find and schedule. And then we can also be a tool for academic continuity as well. And everything is LMS integrated inside the course.
That's a great point. And Carol, if you think about every school that we've talked to, I mean, we've talked to a lot, but they're all using more than one proctoring modality, right? They're either using a lockdown browser and test center, and in some cases, live virtual proctoring, maybe automated too. And so what we've heard is they're using, most cases, different proctoring vendors. So you've got not one, not two, potentially 3 different contracts using all different types of modalities, can be very confusing for students. And so what we're simply saying is think about that and then push it all up inside your LMS under Smarter Proctoring. And we are the sole vendor that can provide those options. And so that's really what makes us unique.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll share with you in follow-up is also some videos to show you how the scheduling process works and how some of our proctoring tools actually work. So we'll share some little recordings with you after the presentation. Sure. And Jill, yeah, now I'll transfer to Julie. She's going to talk a little about some of the goals you may have for the next year.
Yeah. Thanks, Carol. And so, yeah, we didn't want to do a demo because we wanted to talk to you and show you specifically what's most applicable to your situation. So, but we do have access to that. So thanks for that rundown on Smarter Proctoring, Carol. So we started the webinar with the intentions of, hey, if your school is focused on one of these 4 initiatives this year or in the next couple of years, or some variation of this webinar is for you. And so we're going to kind of review each one of these initiatives and kind of share with you how our services can help you stay focused on that, not just because we have one tool that helps you with it, but also there's additional resources that we help you build around that entire initiative. So if you're interested in creating or updating an orientation course, we don't build an orientation course. That's not our job. What we do is provide an assessment, give you exercises and resources around it, suggestions about what other schools are doing, why it's worked for them, and then also help you with the bigger picture, right? I think Carol mentioned at the beginning, that holistic view, supporting students, right? The whole student, not just one area. Perhaps you're looking to personalize the advising experience, or maybe you have student success coaches and you want them to have concrete information to speak with a student about. And I often use the example, I mean, and as Carol stated, we both have several children that have been out of college, and we even still have some that are still in college. And if I have, somebody has 20 minutes with my child, their student, I don't want them to talk about 30 things that may or may not impact their success. I want them to focus on the 5 things that are directly related to the challenges that my child may have, or the opportunities that are going to connect to help them be more successful. So I really think it's important, and we don't have a way of getting that information until we take SmarterMeasure, right? And that's what's going to make that connecting bridge. Obviously, we work with many schools with TRIO programs, Upward Bound, identifying at-risk students. Any student that's first gen, there are some at-risk factors. You know that, other schools know that. That's not a mystery. And how do we proactively support not just the students who are at risk, but all of our students? Let's not say, hey, here's 10 resources, student, Joe, go check them out. Why don't we point Joe to the 3 that we have seen will be most applicable? That's really how we get proactive and make it really personalized. And then, of course, restoring academic integrity, which has been a huge issue at colleges, universities across the country. As you know, with COVID, it definitely put a lot of that in jeopardy. And so some cases we need to restore academic integrity, but at the very least, of course, preserve it, right, going forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help you do that. So if you are, it says check or update an orientation course, it should say create, my bad. It says check. So if you are creating an orientation course, maybe you didn't have one previously, and now you've kind of gotten, your head above water with COVID. Hey, we recognize there's some gaps have been exposed to our students. We need to get more information. We need to provide them with additional resources. If you're doing that, or maybe updating the orientation course you previously had, we want to provide with you some free resources. This is not really promoting our product. This is just, hey, here's a guide, what you should consider when starting an online program. This was a long, extensive article. It's got a video in there, which again is following right here, and several resources that are going to give you some ideas of, here's one-stop shop. Go ahead and review this. It's going to give you some step-by-step instructions of things to consider. Not that you don't already know that, but right, like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's use the resources we have. So it's a great place to start, especially if you formed a committee or if you're trying to evaluate what you're providing and how to make it better. I would encourage you again to check out the video here. I think it's about a 15-minute video from our CAO that he's been in education longer than Carol and I have, and also served on many different roles within the company, but also in higher ed. And so he's just got a lot of knowledge. He's our CAO and founder, Dr. Mac Adkins. I've linked our case studies, because case studies, while they may not be directly HBCU colleges, they're just schools that have used our resources and kind of give you some idea of how they've had success, right? And so you may want to pattern what you're doing after them, or at the very least get information, sort of some insight about how we've helped those schools. And then there's several, I just popped on 2 here, landing pages of how some of our client schools, and again, these are not HBCUs, but how these 2 schools are delivering SmarterMeasure and getting it to their students. Again, some schools use it in their admissions process. Some require it, some have it as an optional. Some schools do put it in the LTI in the orientation course, but this just gives you a taste of some of the things that we could provide for you in supporting you in implementing SmarterMeasure. So North Carolina Central University is an HBCU. So we promised you that we're going to focus on a handful of HBCUs, not just that use our tools, but also how they do that. And so this is an example. To the right, this is where the students would log in to take the SmarterMeasure assessment. obviously, they use it. They primarily give it to strictly their online students. Now, years ago, most schools were just giving it to their online students, but as we've grown and transitioned, even long before COVID, we found many of our schools giving SmarterMeasure to not just online students, but also first year experience in the orientation course, student success courses, even academic probationary students and trio students. So their use case began to grow because it's not only measuring, are you ready for an online course? It's really, what is your learner readiness? What are some of the challenges, as we talked about, those non-cognitive attributes that are going to pretty much apply in any self-regulated learning environment? The technical skills, right? That's pretty important. Even if you go to school every day face-to-face, you're probably going to be involved with the LMS. You're going to be required to do some things with technology, et cetera. They do have an orientation course via SAML integration, which is another type of integration we provide in addition to LT, as I mentioned, a few other ones. They go to the NCCU student portal, and once the students complete it, they can email or upload the PDF of results, and then they get credit by their instructors. So again, this is the way they've implemented it. It incentivizes the student to take the assessment. They're going to get connected to some resources, but then it's also going to be some additional information that North Carolina Central University can look at and view the data of all their students down the road. They also use SmarterProctoring, and they use the automated proctoring for their online exams, which again, as Carol stated, automated is that AI that's going to flag those anomalies. Doesn't necessarily mean they're cheating, just means that there's some questionable things happening. And so we want to, identify those flags. Now, I mentioned briefly there, if another initiative of yours is looking at your TRIO program, trying to improve it through the upward bound students, maybe you're going to try to identify at-risk students using things other than their standardized testing, other than their, maybe they have probationary admissions, right? Where they're coming in and based on their transcripts, their grades, some of the things that you are able to see cognitively they may struggle with their placement test. That's going to help you guide that student. But there may be some students who all that looks good. Their scores are good. They have high GPA. They don't have any at-risk factors, but yet there's other things that you don't see, right? Maybe they are trying to work full time and they don't have a concrete plan with support of how to get through school. And maybe they're a single parent or a young parent helping care for aging parents, et cetera. So we still need to identify some of those at-risk factors that may not show up on their cognitive information they've had to share with you. And ultimately, again, proactively supporting all students. It's really important to connect with students and match them with the best resources that make most sense. This is going to save time and energy for students, and really also, the admins or the success coaches, faculty, et cetera. And ultimately, we don't want students withdrawing and us reacting to problems. We want to try to be as proactive as possible, and the information uncovered in SmarterMeasure allows schools to do that. So I wanted to put several logos because while we're not focusing on how every HBCU that is our client uses SmarterMeasure, several of them do. And so this is not an exhaustive list. I just pulled some of our some of these have been long time, been involved with us, long time clients, and are using SmarterMeasure in a various Carol, pick it up here.
I froze. I'm back now. Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
So it just says my internet connection is unstable too. So I'm gonna hop off. Or pause and then let you pick these next few slides up, Carol.
Great. Also too, the advising SmarterMeasure can be great for the advising experience, because when you think about meeting with the student, their SmarterMeasure has, you can have as many as 7 sections, a way to find out about their technology skills, their life situation, their non-cognitive attributes. And it's a really time saver for the advisor. So we have an educator report that the advisor can review. She can find out the student's pain points or what may cause the student to struggle. She can glance at that educator report right before the student walks into their office or before she meets them for an online appointment. And we all know that employers are starting to focus more on those work ethic skills, those non-cognitive attributes. People don't just look at GPAs anymore. And that's a way for advisors also to get a window into that student and how they may struggle. It's just a real time saver for advisors, and advisors love getting that background data on their students so they can support them more effectively. And again, doesn't have to be an advisor, could be a success coach, could be someone in the TRIO program, could be somebody on early alert who's designed to work with early alert students. And it could even be an instructor. We can put SmarterMeasure data into your SIS even, so that that data can follow the student throughout your program if you're interested in doing that.
Thanks, Carol. And that brings up Houston Tillotson. So while they're not officially a client, I mean, they haven't started using it, but they have been working with me since the end of last year to bring on SmarterMeasure, because they are launching a new online program and they want to do it right. And so again, I have so enjoyed working with the team there, them talking about these are their goals. They want to do this right. They've come through COVID, and now that they're launching the program, they've seen where there's some gaps and that were exposed in COVID. And so they want to start, and it's been great. Again, that resource I shared with you, what you should consider starting an online program. So they were concerned about readiness. They're concerned about students' commitment to online classes, maybe some myths about what online classes mean. I mean, all these years, I remember, years ago, I was talking about, well, people think online classes are easier. I think that myth is starting to be debunked, but unfortunately, there's still students who think, I'm just gonna take an online class because it'll be easier. It'll be an easy A. And so we really want to make sure the students are prepared, and they want to make sure the students are successful. They're not just going to turn a blind eye. So I love the fact that they're committed to this. They're providing success coaches. And so they want to connect with students with relevant information about the student. And again, some of the things we're repeating because we just cannot drive it home enough. We need to know about what we're going to focus on with our students to help them be successful. Proactive, that same word continues to come up. Let's talk about the things that they may have challenges. And again, it doesn't mean that the advisor success coach, wow, you didn't do so well on that, so you're probably not going to be a good fit. It's a, hey, you got yes, I know. I thought it was going to take 5 hours, but I think it's going to require more. Well, let's talk about what other commitments you have. Something you may have to give something up. You may have to, okay, I'm going to try harder, or you're right, I'm going to have to give up, maybe cut down my hours at work, or maybe cut down my hours at school. They have to be realistic about their goals and their success. And as we coach them into success, we want them to be aware of those potential challenges, but also opportunities, right? Ultimately, they want to, in collecting the data, and they will, the student and the admin, they can review the trends. Maybe they see, wow, 30% of our students have a predominant learning style that is social or that is oral. They may want to evaluate their instructional design, making sure they have enough elements in those courses that really speak to that particular learning style, because a third, I mean, that's pretty powerful. That could improve engagement in the learning courses. That can improve overall grades even, and certainly would improve retention, right? And ultimately, down the road, once they do get enough data, they can then begin looking at that SmarterMeasure data and how it correlates with additional KPIs, such as an engagement in the LMS, such as even discussion board engagement, right? What is it that is the big mix of why these students are sticking around longer, helping them get to success, and ultimately, again, improving retention, right? And we all know it costs a lot more to get a new student than it does to keep the students we have. So thanks for letting me jump in there on them, Carol, and I'll let you pick it up here.
Yeah, we might not have think about proctoring being something that's related to the student experience, but as I mentioned previously, there are a couple of reasons that testing can be a pain point for students. We all have experienced test anxiety. We can think back into 5th grade and we didn't read all those chapters in our history book, and the minute that paper was put on our desk, we've all experienced it at some point in our life. A lot of that was exacerbated during the pandemic, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, remote testing, additional fees can be associated with remote testing. So that can be another reason that students are not, are worried about proctored exams, because they may have to pay those fees associated with exams. And also too, another reason is students may have anxiety about showing their work, about their home and their work environment when they're testing. In these tough economic times, how many students are still living at home? May have a little brother or little sister in the room with them. How many single mothers are testing late at night? People may be uncomfortable sharing their work environments and their home environments. And so it's really good if we can give students a testing option that will reduce their anxiety, reduce their cost, and really give them the best choice for whatever their needs are that week. And that's one thing, if you use Smarter Proctoring and give students those options, a student that doesn't have enough money to pay for a remote exam could possibly go to your testing center for free. A student who is cohabitating with is living in a room with 2 younger siblings doesn't have to worry about finding a quiet environment for remote testing. Some weeks, some options work, some weeks they don't. Some weeks a mother may have to find a babysitter to go to a testing center, so she'd rather test from home. Again, options can really make testing another part of that student experience that shows your institution is going the extra mile to meet the needs of your students in these stressful times. So with Smarter Proctoring, we can make those options easy. We're proud to work with Central State University, and we have a history with this distance learning team at Central State. They actually used us at another program, and everybody can read, so I'm not going to read the slide to you, but just see here the factors that allowed them to choose us really for a second time, because they came from a previous institution. And at Central State, one of the first things they did was, you know what, we want to bring Smarter Proctoring to this new institution. And ease of use, student and faculty friendly. I mean, you can see that all over the slide. So we're proud to work with Central State, and they do offer testing centers, our database of approved proctors, and then automated proctoring for a remote option.
Thanks, Carol. And again, same for me. I'm not going to read the slide to you, but Shelton State Community College, again, in our home state of Alabama, which we're very proud to serve them and partner with them. And many of the same answers that you're going to see, maybe spoken a little differently, but the words that stick out are choices, flexibility. In their case, they were using 2 separate vendors. They were not pleased for the various reasons that are listed here, but they still needed choices, and they didn't want to get to 2 more vendors. So instead, we were able to, provide one one proctoring platform that's integrated inside the LMS. So every faculty member, every student, every administrator can see all the proctoring options or the proctoring activities that are going on, whether it be test center, automated record and review, and live online, without jumping around to different vendors. That provided them a single source contract. And one of the biggest things we hear is a single source support department. Our support department, I mean, they get rave reviews. I'm really proud of them. It's 24/7, 365. They do a really good job. And that was one of the things we've heard from so many schools that are using different proctoring modalities, different vendors. The students don't remember who to contact when, and the help desk is overwhelmed, and it just can be a lot. So we take that burden off of you, and we know our product best and how to help our students quickly. So it's just been really a good turnaround. I think we're in year 3 almost. We're coming up on year 3 with them. So those are the things that that's sort of those same themes that have popped up. We're pretty much through with the majority of what we really wanted to focus on with you guys. We've got some time for Q&A. The last section, we're just going to skim through, and Carol, I'm just going to let you talk through them each. We want, again, to show you we're not just trying to here's Smarter Proctoring, have fun. We really take our commitment of supporting clients, not just about our products, but things that surround improving the student experience. We want to provide you documentation and instruments that you can pass along so you don't have to create them for yourself.
Yeah, and Julie's just flipping through. We've got resources for how to be a successful online learner, creating a place to study. And all these links are going to be in the slide deck that we're going to send you. The next one is staying focused and tips for effective study, especially, again, online courses can be different for students to study for than face-to-face as they have in the past. Our next one is on time management, something that most students can have help with, and also one of the ways SmarterMeasure can uncover if that problem exists for the student. And then the advisor can follow up. And then positive affirmations. Where that negative self-talk, we want to replace that with positive self-talk. And then Julie's going to, again, we'll send you links to those resources after the call. Now, Julie's going to talk to you about some options that we'd like to provide for really exploring further with us in the next few months.
For sure. Thanks, Carol. And again, those are just an example of 4 or 5 resources, right? We have more. So we do have some exclusive offers for HBCUs. We've really committed 2023 to take a close look at your institutions and some of the unique challenges, but also the unique opportunities that you have, and leverage the current schools that we're currently servicing. And hopefully, as a partnership and a consortium, you guys can speak with each other and we can offer these special partnership options. So just a few of those, we do want to have an individual conversation with you because HBCU or not, you have your own unique challenges and your own unique initiatives and, mandates from the top down. And we want to get to the bottom of what those are and how we can help if we can, right? We may not be a good fit, but we would love to talk with you and work with you. So I'm going to provide some trial logins for SmarterMeasure because again, we want you to take the assessment yourself, understanding that while you can't change questions, you could omit a section or two if you wanted to. There's so many customizations that can be used on the back end, but we want to get you a taste of understanding, okay, I see kind of what they're measuring here in the student feedback. That's something we'll share with you following the webinar. We are looking at a few selective Smarter Proctoring summer pilots. We would love if you're interested in trying out our proctoring platform and you have a couple of instructors that are committed to that. We would love to extend that to you and your team. We understand sometimes you have to try it before you buy it. And so we're willing to work with you on that. We have several different options. So if you're looking or researching, evaluating any new proctoring providers, please let us know so we can help you get in on that offer. We are trying to plan some type of fall webinar series, a summit of some kind. We anticipate a few webinars, but hopefully at least one of those is going to be focusing on HBCUs. It perhaps will include some of our current clients that are HBCUs and having them speak on not only how they're using our resources, but what it's done for their program. Perhaps maybe a case study or two will have come out by then. They'll have more time to evaluate their data. And if that's something you would be interested in, we'd love to talk with you about that. We also are providing for certain select HBCUs, depending on criteria and your needs, a 1-hour consulting call. We would love to help review and that says elevate, but also evaluate your orientation course, maybe the elements you have in there. We could share with you some of what our other clients have done just for ideas, right? We're not the experts, but we do have experience with a lot of different types of schools and a lot of different suggestions. And so it's great to learn from your colleagues. We can pass that along to you. And we're happy to evaluate that and provide some suggestions. And then, of course, ultimately would love to publish a case study with you that not only indicates how you're using our product, but ultimately, and more importantly, how you are improving the student experience, what your school is doing. You care, you're making efforts, you're putting your money where your mouth is, and you're saying, this is what we're doing. It's really want to spotlight and highlight how you are improving the student experience and why that's important to you. So that's really what we think of a case study. So I'm going to pause for Q&A. And I will be monitoring the question section. Again, our contact information is here. Feel free to email Carol or I directly. If we're not the right person, we'll get you to the right person. And let me watch the question. Let's see what we've got. You know what? Let me see. Looks like somebody's typing. Okay. I don't know, Carol, if you can view it or not, but okay, so somebody said, okay, the question is, and I want to paraphrase here, if you're using Respondus, the lockdown browser and monitor, but you also have some instructors that are using ProctorU for live online. The question is, are we saying that we would pull them into our platform, or would we omit them and still be able to provide that same type of proctoring? So the answer is we would be your single vendor and platform. You would no longer work with ProctorU or Respondus, but we would be able to provide parallel services, right? So we provide our automated proctoring, which is going to lock down the monitor. The browser is going to record what's in the webcam and everything that goes on the screen. And then it's going to flag the anomalies like the AI, right? Whether there's multiple faces in the webcam, no face in the webcam, if there's talking, if someone's reading the test aloud, for example, and someone's in the other room writing it down, that sort of thing. So it's really the lowest level of proctoring, but it's a great deterrent to put in place. It's very affordable. And then we do now have our own live proctors that Carol mentioned, highly professional and well-trained. That would be the ones that would onboard your students in the instance of the few professors. I think you said some high stakes exams are going to be using that resource. Then we would onboard them, watch them through the webcam, watch what their monitor is doing, making sure they're not, doing anything sketchy or that indicates cheating incident. We would be able to live communicate with them via chat or vocally, individually. And the AI is still going to be flagging anything in the background that's questionable, that automated automated would be. And so the proctor can remove those flags if they are false, but then also the professor can still review the recording afterwards if they choose to do that. So yes, we would be your sole provider, and we would be able to provide the two options. And then the way it's set up in the LMS is, as Carol indicated, the school or the faculty determines which options the student's going to see. So the automated and the live online would both be enabled, and allowing the student to choose which modality that they have been instructed to do so. So I hope that helps answer your question. All right, let's see. I don't know if you see any more, Carol. Okay.
I do see, Julie, what about a question if SmarterMeasure can be integrated into student information systems? I think like Banner. I think I briefly mentioned that, but if you want to elaborate.
Couple of different ways that can happen. Listen, we have LTI that goes inside the LMS. We provide a API, which some schools then use that API, their tech program or their IT departments, to use our API to pull a portion or how much ever they want of the assessment, the results into the student record. And we hear that most when the advisors are using the results, right? And they need to log into the SIS because that's kind of where they live, and they want to go to the student's record and see that information there. So we work with schools and just kind of, provide them our API and give them some suggestions and connect them with our IT, our developers. So absolutely, that's a great question, and some of what a lot of our schools do. Let's see. Pricing. Okay, that always comes up. So I appreciate that. A couple of things I want to point out, and that is, I keep going back to the Readiness and ProctorU example. There's many more examples. It could be Examity and Proctorio, or I don't know, ProctorTrack. There's lots of different vendors, but generally speaking, that automated low level is the most inexpensive way, right, to proctor. And then you have that face-to-face level or online webcam. That's usually the most expensive option. That in the middle, record and review, where it's all AI flagged, and then our proctors review it and clean it up before they send you the recording, right? Which is kind of a middle range. So with us, because we provide more than one modality and you do have a single vendor, the first thing is you're always going to get the best volume pricing because you're only dealing with us, one contract, right? The second thing is we have various pricing options. Some schools request a flat rate per student. Some want to have, a certain number of automated sessions. They're only going to be using automated, so they're going to pay us an X number of dollars, and it's going to narrow down to X dollars per session. And then if they use the live online, they may choose 200 live sessions and then 4,000 automated. So it pretty much comes down to us personalizing, not the price, because the price is the price, right? But really formulating how much the way you pay us, whether we bill in arrears, whether you pay in advance, maybe half at the beginning of the semester, and then we look at your actual usage and then we bill you for the remaining. Again, we do have some schools that have a flat rate per student, where we have, a lot of automated sessions per student, and then we may cap it at a certain number, and that's a flat rate, because we still have schools that are covering the bill for students, and we have some schools that are now pushing that on to the student, and the student pays per session. So we also have that option. If you're passing it along to the students, they can absolutely pay point of sale when they go in and take their exam. They can pay for it as they go, and we have that system provided as well. So I don't know, Carol, if you want to add anything to that, but
no, I think that's a good description of how it works.
Yeah. And the only other thing I see here on the questions is regarding how to get set up with a call, like should they email us, or how, to further look into some of the options and ideas, kind of how we relate to your individual school. So again, I would encourage you to email Carol or I. We do have different areas of the country that we service and work with. We have a couple of other team members that also are not on the webinar, but they may be reaching out. So either one of us or both of us, we're happy to make sure you get to the right person. Generally speaking, we like to schedule a call with 1 to 2 team members, 15 to 20 minutes, to ask some questions, right? Get to know what your challenges are. Find out what you're doing now, what's working, what's not working. And then if we believe based on what you need, we are a good fit, whether it be with SmarterMeasure at the beginning of the student experience or proctoring at the end of a student experience, we will be very honest and forthright about that. And if we do believe we're a good fit, we'll love to schedule a follow-up custom demo that focuses on how you that best meets your needs. And we encourage you to include additional team members that may be on your committee, your IT team, some of your success coaches, or even some of your proctors or your test center and admins if we're talking about proctoring. So we definitely look forward to hearing from you. Of course, we have all your contact information, and we will be sending out a follow-up email with some additional information, the deck, the resources, and the recording. So I know we're almost at the top of the hour. I don't see any other questions coming in, but I know I really appreciate your time today. It's been great. Carol and I are very passionate about this. HBCUs, we're super excited to work with you, and we look forward to hopefully building a partnership. Carol?
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks for your time. Bye.